Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Cask Talk. Dave and I have gotten aggressive today and decided to film 3 in one go, but we're not drinking in between shoots, so we're still relatively clear-headed and sober. Anyway, I'm Paul, that's Dave. I'm the beer drinker, and Dave is the beer brewer and judge, so anything smart's probably going to come out of his mouth.
I think yours is obviously more relatable, as I tend to look at very critically in regards to how things are done. And today we are doing Grand Teton Amber Ale. This is one of my more favorite styles of beer. I like amber ales. I brewed it probably more often than almost any other beer, except for Scottish type brews.
I just saw Grand Teton Brewing and thought, oh, a beer named after a mountain range named after Hooters. So,
see, I see Grand Teton knowing that it is one of my wife's favoriteest national parks. We're big national park people. Obviously, my wife had lived up in Boise, Idaho for quite some time and would travel over to the Grand Tetons for camping trips. Talked very highly about it. I think we went on our first trip up to Yellowstone together and had a great time. So we've always wanted to go up and spend some time up there. Love the views.
I would like to see it myself. At any rate, I'm kind of a fan of amber ales myself. So we did some hunting around online, and ironically, we could not find an IBU rating for this beer. Although the APV, according to their website and the can, is 4.7. It has won some awards. The brewery itself is founded in 1988 in Victory, Idaho. So this is not actually on the side of Wyoming. But without any further ado, I think we need to get what's important here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give it a try. I do like the fact they put it in a can. That helps keep it fresh.
And from souring due to the UVs, right?
Yeah, the UV rays kind of penetrate those brown bottles just enough to where you'll get maybe a little skunking of the hops. So, and then just the overall oxidation of glass bottles with a cap versus a
that is quite
aluminum seems to be better with aluminum.
Well, you're not going to get...
Not as fancier, but...
You know, we talked about this previously. I tend to prefer my beer out of cans. I know it's anti-purist to not have it in bottles, but something about cans, the carbonation seems more consistent and at a little bit lower of a level. I'm not a big carbonation guy. And generally speaking, cans are, I think, just easier to drink out of because you don't end up with that suction from vacuuming out the bottle when you drink from it, you know?
Yeah, I really think that the reason why bottles are so popular is the reusability of it. So as a home brewer, it's really easy. Pop off a bunch of tops and run them through your dishwasher, pull the labels off, clean them up, sanitize them, and then you can recap them yourself very easily. Caps are super cheap. You can brew with them. So home brewers, being this big core of beer enthusiasts that are out there, drive the, oh yeah, you've got to produce them in bottles because we love reusing the bottles. And I have to admit, I do that. But since I started kegging, you know, you just get to a point in life where it's just easier to toss it in a keg, pressurize it, toss it in your fridge, have it on tap anytime you want it. You're not trying to impress anyone. No one will see it, maybe except a few people that come over who pour themselves off a pint or two.
Well, the other thing, too, about kegging it is you can control the X, Y, and Z as far as things like carbonation.
Yeah.
You know, and some beers you want more carbonation, some beers you want less. But if you bottle and any fermentation happens in that bottle, then you're going to end up with a much fizzier beer.
Yeah.
You know, or if not enough fermentation happens after the fact, you're going to end up with a flat beer. So
yeah,
I can see definitely the advantage to kegging over.
Yeah, and if one of the arguments is travelability to it, but if I need quite a bit of beer, I've got little kegs, 2.5 and 3 gallon kegs that I can transfer the beer over into, or I could pour off a gallon growler
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say
take it wherever I go, keep
growlers
it
are your friend.
cold, end up with good results, you know. So it just, for me, even as a home brewer, I don't do much bottling anymore, though I guess it would be different if I was trying to sell it.
Well, at any rate, we should probably get back to the meat and potatoes of the video here, which is an actually beautiful looking freaking amber with a very nice looking head.
Yeah, I like the head on it quite a bit. It's very moosey. It sticks around a while. You can tell it has great structure. I would expect maybe some lacing to this. Ambers are really caramely by nature, which is probably how they generate a lot of this color. And because of that, usually you create a really nice lacing that'll come off of it.
Yeah, it's a cloudy beer. Not exactly crystal clear like some of the other ones we've done. Doesn't have a lot of scent to it.
I'm picking up some hoppiness to it though. Yeah, some like almost like citrusy, grassy kind of hop.
Getting kind of a grassy maybe note.
Yeah, I think that's the
I'm not
hops.
getting much else.
Kind of a sweet. It's not super strong, but it's certainly there.
Yeah, there's a smell. I just don't know how to describe it in a intelligent way.
Yep, and it delivers right along with it. Very American style amber, American hop.
This is almost exactly what I would expect out of an amber
It
ale.
smells as it tastes. It reminds me of almost like a Centennial type hop. I'm maybe a Cascade. I'm not 100%. It's actually a little bit more citrusy than a Cascade,
It is a
but
bit citrusy.
I would almost think it's a Centennial.
But it's not bitter. It's not like a strong bittering flavor
No.
to the hops.
And that's where I think that they really kind of focus on this beer, on the flavor profile and the smell. And this is when you talk about brewing, when you add these hops into the process, it's going to create the result. You add in the very beginning, you're going to blow off all the flavor and aroma, you're going to end up with bittering. If you do it towards the end, if you time it right, you're getting a lot of flavor out of it. And then if you're tossing it at the very end, you're going to get a lot of aroma out of it because you don't have enough time to blow all that aroma off through your boil. So the timing of it, you're really able to construct what you're ending up with. They've done a great job here because the amber is not a bitter beer.
No,
It should be more
it
towards
should
this
be a more caramelly tasting beer.
character to it. And I think that they hold that character while adding that American style hops to it. So if you're a big IPA pale ale kind of fan, it's going to be more
This
towards the
is-
pale ale than the
Yeah,
IPA. It's not going to be bitter like an IPA.
we didn't find a bittering units on this, and if I had to guess, this might be below 10, but definitely below 15. This
It's hard
is
to guess.
really mild.
It may be in the 20s because your sweetness of that amber character kind of balances it out. It might be a lot more bitter than we think it is, just because we're balancing out so much sweetness to it
Yeah.
that it's not tasting as sweet because it has that bitterness to it, but it's not overly bitter. It's a well balanced
Normally
approach
I
to
can
it.
pick the two apart. At least my experience is I can tell that they've balanced. I don't think that they've really done a lot of balancing. This is more of a malt driven beer flavored 100%.
Yeah.
This is not a hop centric flavor at all.
For me, I think they've done a great job not overly bittering it because one of the reasons why I like this style is you can create a lot of that hoppy flavor out of the beer without kind of going into that bitterness range. So they've done a great job kind of keeping it somewhat subdued on that level,
Yeah.
but still present. You can taste the bitterness to it that offsets that sweetness to it. So it makes it really good.
It's got a bit of a thicker mouthfeel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the flavors are kind of on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Not like right there as it hits your mouth, like an IPA is hits your mouth, it's going to be right there. You get that strong stout, it's going to be right there, but there's going to be some on the back end. This is leaning much more towards the back end of the swallow. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
It's got good flavor to it. Obviously, more hop focused than anything else. Very hop flavored.
you think so?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I'm
for me,
tasting the malt through it.
well, I'm tasting the malt, but I think predominantly when I'm drinking this, I'm tasting the hops.
Hmm.
You know, the hops are kind of the front forward standing
Yeah, to me,
character to it.
the malt is very strong in this one, or at least dominant, I should say. I shouldn't say it's strong because it's not that strong of a malty flavor. But to me, I'm getting much more of the malt.
Definitely is much more maltier than some of the other beers we had tonight.
And it
Obviously, we were doing
could be,
blondes comparatively,
yeah,
so
it could be that's what my palate's at right now.
mhm.
So
When you compare this to the blonde, there's a lot more malt to this, character-wise.
yeah,
So
so
there's a decent amount of hop flavor to it, but again, it's not like an IPA. It's going to be, if you are getting into these kind of styles of beers, when it comes to especially hop flavored or something that's a little bit more caramely rather than a standard beer, this is, I think, is a good example. A
yeah,
really
this
good
isn't a
beer to
bad
have.
beer. This is a good, decent product. It's definitely
4.7.
a wet beer. Like an IPA is more of a dry beer. The blondes we both did earlier are more of a dry beer. This is more of a wet beer. Your mouth isn't freaking, I'm not looking for a glass of water after drinking half of this
Mhm.
to have a sip of water. This has got some gorgeous lacing to it. See if you can see that there.
Yeah, it really comes through on that. And that's probably a lot of the sugar content. It is sweeter, than a lot of the other beers that we've had recently.
Yeah, no, it's a good product. And their website, they do say they have won some awards, so it doesn't surprise me. It's got
So,
a nice, thick kind of mouthfeel to it, too, that's pleasant.
so one of the things I always compare things when I think amber ale is obviously Alaskan amber ale is a really big, massively produced beer. I'm a big fan of it. That one. I think this is good, but I think if I had to kind of compare the two, I might actually go with
The
the
Alaskan.
Alaskan over it. Um, this is a little hoppier. This is more reminding me of a really forward pale ale. Like if you're a big pale ale fan, especially the American style pale ales,
Yeah, I am not getting any of that out of this.
I think that you'd like this. If you're a big pale ale person, I mean, do you typically drink a lot of pale ales? Not talking IPA, but just pale ale.
In general, if I get the opportunity to, I enjoy pale ales. So, it doesn't have to be an American or an IPA. It could be just a regular pale ale like we had earlier.
Hmm.
I remember the first pale ale I actually ever tried was called Rhino Pale Ale, and I've never found it anywhere since. And I actually really, really liked that beer. So, you know, it is what it is. But to be honest, no, this is pretty decent. It's more malty. See, he's picking up more of the hops and the flavor, and I'm picking up a lot more of the malt.
Hmm.
So it to me tastes kind of closer to what like a porter might be with a different flavor characteristics. I'm not really picking up hop flavors out of this very much at all.
That's
In fact,
interesting.
I don't even smell like the citrus that you'd normally pick up with hops out of this. I smell the caramel from the malt though.
And maybe it's because my expectation is that beer should have a certain amount of that,
Hmm.
and I'm picking up the above and beyond. I'm also not a huge hop fan. So when it comes to that citrusy and things like that, they're not the characteristics that I'm probably the most fond of.
Yeah. Well, it could just, maybe that's difference between our genetics is that I'm less sensitive to it than Dave is, and maybe that's why you like I don't like the IPAs and I do.
Yeah.
So, well, with all that said about this, and we've rambled on for 15 minutes now, let's go ahead and get into the presentation. What are you thinking here, Dave?
I think it's got a good presentation. I really like the smell. Out of all the beers that we've had tonight, I think it's probably one of the better smells. It's great lacing, which I really like. That always talks to me about kind of what I'm going to taste. It's got a good smell. It had a nice little moosey head to it. Obviously, kind of a caramely kind of character, which,
Bit on the red side.
yeah, a bit on the red side, which is around the kind of types of beers that I like. I'm a big Scottish ale fan. So, I'm leaning towards those kind of beers. So I'm going to give it a pretty high rating with an 8.
All right. I really like the way it looks. The smell was something I kind of had to sniff out. As far as like the head and the lacing, I really like lacing on the glasses myself. I'm at a 7.5.
Taste wise, I'm going to come down off of that. I'm probably going to come down to a 6. I like amber ales, but what I like about amber ales isn't the hops. That's my personal preference when it comes to beer. They're really forward, at least how I'm tasting this beer. Maybe I need to taste yours to see if it's different, but it's almost too hoppy for me on the flavor standpoint. I'm looking for something that is a little bit more malty or a little bit more on the sweeter side to it, and I wish it was leaning that way. And that's kind of what I find with some of these other ones, like the Alaskan Amber that I like.
Well, as far as the taste is concerned, I do like it, but it's a bit on the caramelly side, which to me tastes like kind of a burnt coffee. So I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing, but as far as the beer is concerned, I'm not going to complain about this one at all. So I'm going to be at a 7 on this one. Just because it's something that I'm kind of enjoying like the difference, Sometimes you want a little difference.
Yeah, so overall impression, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm probably at a 7 with it. I think it's a good beer. I think they've done well. I think if you like this kind of style, especially in an American amber, there's other kinds of ambers that you could have. I think a good 7. But from a personal preference standpoint, even though I'm a big amber fan, I'm probably going to drop it back down to a 6, only because I think that they've accentuated out of it the preference that I'm not as big of a fan of.
What you lean towards. For me, the overall impression on this beer, I'm gonna be about a 7 on that one. It's a good looking beer. It's a good smelling beer. It gives nice lacing. It's got a nice color to it. Like a lot of things. Like overall, just looking at it in the glass, I'm like, I'm probably gonna enjoy this. As far as personal preference, I'm gonna be with you actually on that one for a 6, just because I'm not a big fan of the. What I'm noticing out of this beer particularly is the caramelized malts in it, and to me it has like this hint of burnt coffee flavor that you find in a lot of beers that I just honestly don't really enjoy. I feel like if it was sweeter, then maybe I would actually like it better, but I don't think it's the hops that's making it not sweet. I think it's the actual malt.
Yeah, it could be. And it could be the interaction and the bitterness with maybe the caramel that you're creating that. Could be roasted, maybe a little bit of too
Yeah,
much roasted malt. Roasted malt will add a little bit of that amber carrot flavor or color to it. And by doing that, you end up with that direction. I personally, when I'm making them, and if you're a brewer out there, I like to lean more, especially with this kind of style, lean more towards the caramel malts because they leave a residual sweetness after you brew it out. And I think if they'd have done that, they ended up with a little bit sweeter, a little bit more caramely, a little less bitter from the malt,
Mhm.
and a little less of that character that you're talking about, which is that roasted character that you're probably picking up, which they've added for the coloring, which is also imparting a little bit of the flavor.
Yeah, and once again, it probably just goes back down to genetics. I notice things that Dave doesn't. Dave
Mhm.
notices things that I don't. So well, at any rate, we do have to say cheers, like, subscribe, share, all that happy crap, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, hey, share it with your friends. Put some comments down there in the comment section and let us know. So we would love to hear your opinion if you ever had this or if you've ever been even the Grand Tetons. Tell us all about it because I've heard great things about it. So we'd love to hear.
Prost.